Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Full Quota podcast. This is your weekly South African cricketing podcast where we talk all things South African cricket. South Africa are currently in India right now. That's the men's team, and they are playing in three T20s to prepare themselves for the World Cup. We want to talk about that. We also have the CSA Division 2 T20 Cup happening that happened this past weekend, and semi-finals happening this weekend that we're going to be talking about as well. Not a lot of information. CSA, we're going to talk about that. We really are going to talk about that. But before we do that, remember we're sponsored. To subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, we've got a Patreon account if you want to support us. We're also live. We also have audio versions of this podcast on Apple, Spotify, as well as Anchor Podcasts. And also you can like us on Facebook at One World Sports Radio, not like, but you can follow us on Facebook. You can also what do you do on Twitter? Follow people on Twitter as well, and as well we at One World SR, and then also we have a Instagram account at One World Sports Radio, full spelled out. Outside of that, I don't come alone. I have Tim with me. Tim, how are you doing? Lots of cricket this weekend. We've been. I thought you'd be watching the county promotion and relegation situations, but you were watching CSA T20 Division Cup.
I was watching it all, bro. I was watching it all. Look, I really enjoyed. I'm sure we won't get into it, but I really enjoyed the Division 2 competition over the weekend. It was we saw a lot of good cricket, a lot of not so good cricket, but I think overall a really good start to the season for the Division 2 guys.
No, that's true. Not a lot of information, but we'll talk to you about what we saw. I watched a few games on YouTube because they're live on YouTube, so that was really a big help. Really impressed by some people, worried about others, but it is Division 2. So it is the second year. So if you're looking to start your season well, some teams really didn't cover themselves in glory. But speaking about a team that didn't cover itself in glory for the second time, and this is a team that in T20s doesn't lose a series in India, and they've lost one in the first time, first one in the last three series, because this is the third series. The other two were drawn. South Africa, the Proteas, going to the World Cup. This was supposed to be preparation. They lost 2 games in a row, the second game on the trot. India scoring 237 in that first innings in Guwahati, and then South Africa just capitulating. Not capitulating, they actually did quite well. They capitulated in the first match, but this time they got to 221, 16 runs shy, and lots of questions. But Tim, before we go into anything of that, here are a couple of things that I'd like to let those in the social media realm. You can make me trend if you want to trend. Actually, it would be nice if you make me trend. But anyway, here's the thing. Themba Bavuma is not the reason for the loss yesterday. Yes, he is off form. We can all see that. He knows that. The Proteas management know that. The selectors know that. So it doesn't help for you to tag him and ask him to retire, or tag him and call him a quota, or tag him and call him all sorts of names. He knows that he's off form right now, but there are a couple of things that people need to know. Themba is a T20 player. He's the incumbent in that seat. He got that seat in 2019 and late 2019, early 2020, when he beat out everybody else and got himself into that side with a strike rate. I think back then it was 130. Then South African cricket went into this overhaul. And at the time, Themba was still the incumbent. We tried the Adaman Malans, they failed. We tried the Reza Hendricks, they failed. Yet alone, Reza's back now into the squad. We've tried every other opener in this country and they failed. Aiden Markram failed for a bit, up until obviously he had his resurgence later on. So you can't come and tell me that Themba is not a T20 player. Yes, maybe there's an argument that right now he is off form and maybe as a T20 opener, it's done. But on the other side, Quinton de Kock had the same thing. They both had the same strike rate coming into this game this year. It was around about 100. So you can't come and just start throwing cots and looking at Themba alone. And that, for me, is the issue here. We're being very disrespectful to the captain of South Africa, whether you like it or not. The person, he didn't arrive into the squad and was like, hey, guys, I'm captain now. Like, take it or not. Graham Smith, your golden child, Graham Smith, the other golden child, Mark Boucher, they were the ones who picked him as captain. We had lots of apprehensions here, wondering why we're giving a captaincy to somebody who's been in the side for 7 games. But when we looked at it, he was the option. He was a good option as captain, but he hadn't cemented his place in the side. So then now everyone's like saying, no, he's captain CSA. CSA had nothing to do with it. If you're talking about CSA, Graham Smith was the CSA that made him captain. So go ask him, go tweet him, go tag him and Mark Boucher and Victor Mpitsang and ask them why they made Tim the captain. Don't come and tag a person. How would you like if somebody came to your office and tagged you or tagged your boss on Twitter and said, hey, this person is doing a really bad job? How would you feel? How would you feel? I know they're sportsmen. I know they're in the public limelight and they need to take it. But guys, come on. We watch the game of cricket. Yes, we know he's in a rough patch, but you've afforded a lot of luxuries to some of your faves over the years. Some of your faves who are still playing certain formats of cricket where they shouldn't even be playing. Yet this man who's sitting there as captain of South Africa, unwanted or not, I don't know. He probably didn't want it. He probably reluctantly took it. Now all of a sudden he's in trouble. Let's discuss the question of his form and how we can get him out of it. Let's not vilify and disgrace him and be disrespectful and rude to him. Stop calling him a quota. I know our podcast was called the Full Quota Podcast, but the quota word directed to a person is derogatory and borderline racist. And I know I may be speaking to the converted who will be agreeing with me, but there's a certain side of who think that I am I fall on race. I run onto race. And the reason why I do that is because a lot of people are disrespectful to players of color in South Africa. And with that, Tim, we're going to go to Tim. What cost us the game yesterday?
The bowling. Absolutely the bowling. There's absolutely no doubt about it. The most important part and the part that we strive on, in our successes for the last 2 or 3 years has been the bowling. Now obviously there are caveats. The humidity at Guwahati was insane. It was something like 90% humidity. So the fact that the slow balls and Yorkers were missing by so much is in part due to the humidity at the ground. But at the same time, as much as India weren't getting it right with their bowling, they didn't bowl full tosses like South Africa. Their bad balls were back of a length balls that sat up. They saw that you actually can't go there. You can't go too full, because if you get it wrong on this wicket, it's just gonna go to town. It's a huge problem. Again, I don't anticipate that sort of humidity in Australia for the World Cup, but you have to get it right at some stage. You have to go, you know what? There's a lot of humidity here, so let's try something different. And at no stage through that Yadav complete and utter demolishing of our bowling did we try something different. At no stage did we try, okay, let's try the wider Yorker, or let's try bowling wicket to wicket, or let's bowl back of a length, let's bowl round the wicket and tuck up the batsman. They didn't try different plans. They said, right, the plan is to bowl as full as possible and go for that Yorker length. And those last 5 overs, we did okay to those last 5 overs. I mean, I say okay, they were still looking at 200 as a score. But those last 5 overs went for 82. And that tells you everything you need to know about the bowling.
It's like they had their own Tristan Stubbs on their side, because that's what we were expecting from Tristan Stubbs in 5 overs. Look, so I looked at yesterday's game. I kind of felt like South Africa didn't have a plan B. They just looked all at sea, and you can blame the captain for that. You can blame the coach and stuff. You can blame whoever you want. And the issue, and I think David Miller kind of said it well, was you kind of need a day in T20 where both bowling and batting come together. And so far, and this is the problem about the Mark Boucher, well, South Africa in general, most of the times it's always been the bowling who's been there, keeping you in games. And then the batting had to, remember, was it last year around this time, South Africa, we knew going into the World Cup 150. Just give the bowlers 150, and we'll bowl whichever team we want up. And so essentially that's where we've been leaning. But now this is a different side where I think our batting is a little bit stronger now. And you saw that with the 221, Tim. The fact that they can, out of any from any situation, that they can necessarily dig the team out of a hole. And that's the plus I take out of this game. The bowling outside of it, I know South Africa, when they're under the pump very early on, they just revert to one way. And the thing about India was that at the top, and maybe might lead us to the discussion about our top order. But when India get that foundation at the top, they're pretty much hard to stop in their own conditions. And I'm assuming that would be the same in Australia. But the thing with Australia, you've got bigger boundaries. So if people are going to try to be aggressive, they might actually get caught on the boundary because that wide, like those Aussie rules stadiums are just ridiculously large. But so for me, I looked at that and I was like, actually, if we can pull a 220 out of being 47 for 3, surely there's a lot more to take out of this than the drama that's occurring in on Twitter. Yes, it's 237. Yet chances are you're already losing the game by the time you've already conceded 237. The fact that the batsman got you within 16 says something about who you are, because normally teams will get bowled out. There is a strategy situation around how we play our T20, but some things I've seen in terms of the batting, Tim, was that we tend to do the same thing Mark Boucher liked to do, just slowly build into this massive crescendo. And to a certain extent, a lot of you who are listening here and myself don't like it because we want to kind of keep up with the run rate the whole way through. And you assume that that's how you do T20. Whereas, as David Miller said in the press conference, that you can skin a cat either way. This is how South Africa choose to skin the cat. Remember in the warm-up, I think last year against Pakistan scored 200. Rassie scored that magnificent 100. And Rassie was at a run ball 40. Okay, no, it can't be a run ball. It was a run ball 30, 25, 30 there. Then he exploded into that 100. So similar to Quinton de Kock yesterday. So from that situation, that was the positive I picked out. The bowling, I was like, that's an anomaly. Chances are we're not going to see that again. And if we do, I can back up batting, even though we've got failures in the top order. What did you see it that way?
Yeah, like I tend to agree with most of what you said there. We often, as I said, we often talk about South Africa's slow approach to this format, building up, making sure we got wickets in hand. India, after 3 overs, were 21. 7 and over, without loss. They didn't go and make 40 of the first 3. They started relatively slowly at the start. They built an innings. So, as much as I agree, I would much rather we'd look to score 50 in the first 6. It's not the end of the world when you have got our 4, 5, and 6 in the order. It's not the end of the world. The question becomes, and it has come. The question has come is, what do we do when the top order keep failing? Now, they have been doing recently until this game. The importance of Quinton de Kock's runs yesterday rather, cannot be understated in any way, shape or form. He had 35 of 34, and he was looking like a rusted gate. He was looking awful. He was looking like a man who had no interest in being there. But in reality, he knew what he was doing. He knew that he needed to make runs. And I think in the back of his mind, he's thinking, the game is probably over, so it's more important for me to show that I can get myself in, get runs. Somebody like Riley Rousseau should have done something similar. Instead of going for a wild hack in his second ball, he should have gone and done what Quinton did. This series doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that India beat us in the series. 12 months from now, nobody's going to matter. What matters is the batsmen are in form going into that World Cup. The batsmen have runs behind them.
But Tim,
Quinton, we know that.
Tim, can
we know
I jump in there?
Yeah.
One thing I want to disagree with you is because we all want you to come in. We're chasing 230. Why are we asking guys to get their eye in, to get the runs? I understand Quinton at 47, at when the second wicket went down, he thought the game was over. But you can't expect that of Riley when he comes into a situation where effectively everyone's going to talk about Timber's made an over, but that's what it is. The first 6 balls, nothing, and he also got himself out. So isn't that unfair on Riley? Because we wanted, and everybody wanted, to see balls flying from ball 1. Is that unreasonable?
Yeah, look, on the surface, yes. On the surface, yes. The situation becomes a little bit different in yesterday's game, in my opinion, because the runs that he was making in county cricket, he wasn't hacking. He was hitting for ball 1, but he wasn't hacking. He wasn't having blind swipes and just hoping that the top edge would fly through third man for 6. He was hitting through the line, keeping his body still. There are still cricket shots that can be played that are cricket shots in T20 cricket. They go out the ground, but you keep your balance still. His two ducks are a man who knows he's got to score runs, but also knows he's got to do it in a particular fashion. I think it's not about getting in. It's about hitting the ball that deserves to be hit. If it's a good ball, even in T20 cricket, you've got to just get behind it and say, right, good ball, that's fine. Quinton's is slightly different because Quinton was in horrible form before this innings. Horrible form. So it didn't really matter if he, what the situation of the game is. Even if you asked him to go out there and hit from ball 1, he couldn't. He was hitting balls over sort of short cover, which was just clearing the fielders, and he was not timing anything at all, not the slightest. I don't think it was a deliberate ploy of him. I think it was a subconscious ploy that the game was over, but not over, and that I have to get some kind of runs.
So essentially, he benefited from the fact that we lost those 2 early wickets. Speaking about Quinton's opening partner, and look, I know a lot of people want this man out of the team. I get it, and the case against him being in the team continues to be made against him. Well, he makes it himself against him, and that's Timber. And so for me, yesterday's dismissal was all timing. The first 2 matches, it's all timing. He's struggling to time the ball. It's not that he's unable to clear the field at cover. He just couldn't time the ball. And you could see the type of shot he was playing. And my answer is that's the shot you want him to play. That's the shot everybody says he can't play, the one that is over the top. He just mistimed it. Got the low half of the bat and went straight to Virat Kohli. I don't blame him for a shot like that. I really don't. To me, I sit there going, well, that's the type of intent everybody wanted. He just got out. Yes, those 6 balls he wasted, people take time to get themselves in. But had that shot gone over cover, we could be sitting here talking about something different. How long do you persist with Timber? Because in my head, he has to play for the final game, and he has to play the 2 warm-ups to get him ready to go. Because if they were going to drop him, they would have made the decision at the selection of the team. So you don't take him to the World Cup. It's different with captains. Captains can't sit on the bench. They can't sit on, what is this? Like Timber wearing a bib and he's captain of the country, and then at the end of the tournament he's going to lift the trophy, but he's like a ceremonial what is this? No. And this is and those people coming going, no, it's CSA this, they wanted a black. No. Understand this. This country has had white captains for as long as I remember. They could have gone and said, we're still sticking with a white cap. They actually could have given it to David Miller. It goes to show that actually the level of perception, and this is something we said about I can't believe Graham couldn't see the leadership qualities in David Miller. And he was with him in the same change room for a while. So even Mark, like I just it just baffles because I would like right now I'm sitting there going, I'm not in the team. I've never been in that team environment. So I don't know what David Miller was back then. But my assumption was, but this could have captained the side for the last 5 years, or when Faf left.
Yeah, like it's quite possible. The most experienced guy is not necessarily the guy that should be captain. Captains are, although I don't think captains in T20 cricket are that important. I really don't think there's enough nuance in the game to allow that sort of Steve Waugh type captaincy. Mental just really winding down the game and that sort of thing. But my question here is, I want to just be able to have the idea that Timber could be dropped and that the world won't fall apart. That's all I'm asking here. Timber Performer is not the worst player in T20 cricket. He's a decent T20 cricketer. He's done enough to be in that South African side, be in that side. But the fact is that if you do something like move him, it does take away something from that access that we now have of that South African side, because of the approach that he goes about his cricket. That's not a criticism. That's just how he plays his game. That's how it's like saying, let's put Riley Rousseau at 7. Riley Rousseau at 7 would be a complete waste. You completely wasted. Yeah.
But Tim,
so my point is, I just want to be able to have that conversation. Just be able to have the conversation. Today's topic is, what do we do if that comes to pass? I'm not saying it should happen. I don't think it will happen. I think the die is cast. He's going to be opening. He's going to be the captain. I just would like to be able to be in a position to have that conversation and all hell doesn't go fall apart.
Look, so a couple of things. Dropping a captain in a South African context, your first black captain before a World Cup, that was going to send... effectively, that would be CSA burning its own offices.
But it shouldn't. I agree.
No, it shouldn't.
It really shouldn't.
But it speaks to the lack of foresight and the lack of preparation and the mess that Graham has left this team in, and what Mark's going to leave this team in. Well, essentially, when Mark leaves, it gives an opportunity to come up with a new captain. But when Graham said Timber's going to be captain for T20 and ODIs until the 2023 World Cup, he meant that regardless of what is happening with this man's form, he is going to be the first name on the list. That is the statement Mark and Graham made. And it was also a type of a strategy because of the way Mark likes to play. Mark likes to play his game, T20 cricket, with an anchor. We've played this game with somebody batting until over 15 and one of the top 6 going through. So essentially, if, for instance, it wasn't Mark, it was Stephen Fleming, Timber wouldn't be in the side because Timber's game doesn't suit what Fleming wants at the top. And so a lot of the blame that is sitting on Timber should actually be sitting at Mark's feet because he tells the selectors, this is the type of game I want to play. And then the selectors go look for players that fit that mold. So essentially, this is a little bit of a mess because that was created by giving him the 3 years up until 2023. It's a good gesture from a transformation perspective. It's a good gesture from that, but it did hamstring them, and now they're reaping the rewards of all of this. The only way this could happen is Timber decided to walk away between now and Australia, which that's not going to happen for those who wanting it to happen. Those who've tagged Timber millions of times asking him to do that on YouTube, on Facebook, on whatever it is. He's not resigning. He's going to be, and this is the one thing. Get used to the fact that Timber's taking the first ball at the World Cup. Get used to it. Calm down, and then figure out ways to get Timber's form back. And this is where we need to be, because that. So, for instance, here's the thing: if they said we're going to have a leadership group and it's a co-captain type of situation. Banyana have this. So Banyana doesn't have a captain. They have a leadership group. But we kind of all knew who the captain was, and was Janine van Wyk, because she was captain for a long time. At this AFCON that they won, she was on the bench. It looked so bad. Do you get what I'm saying? That even though they had an on-field captain and everything else, she then went on to lift the trophy. Yet all of us are saying, but he only played like one game. Well, she played a few games, but she didn't play in the final. She came on as a sub when we needed to shut up shop. Do you see what that looks, the optics of that? So you don't want to get to that point. So essentially, you needed to front. So when Temba got injured in England, or before England, those discussions needed to happen. They needed to figure out how they were going to disseminate the information coming down the pike if Temba was. But it tells me that
what needed to happen was Temba's one-day captain. We are going to go with Keshav or Mala for the T20. There should have been something like that. There should have been a bit more forthright. Look, but we are where we are. You and I both know what's going to happen. Twitter might not, it might be upset, but the facts are Temba is going to be opening the batting.
So here's what do we do now? Third T20. Quinny's gotten some runs. Reza needs a game. Riley needs a little bit more time. Riley's newer back into the squad. Yes, he's been there before, but he's newer. What do you do? Do you then drop Riley and play Reza and give Temba a chance? Or do you then do what Twitter wants and drop Temba and open with Reza and carry Riley? What are you doing, Tim?
If I'm the coaching setup, I'm not interested in social media. I don't care what's happening on Twitter. So, if with that context being said, I'm dropping Temba and I'm giving Reza a game. And I might be making other changes, but I'm certainly making that change. I'm telling Temba, all the good things. You're happy. You're playing in the two warm-ups. You're playing in the first game of the World Cup. I'm telling him all that. All those are guaranteed. There's absolutely no ambiguity whatsoever that he is playing. Reza has to play a game.
And also so Reza has to play a game. So
yeah,
who's being dropped? Riley.
Temba.
So you're dropping Temba for the third T20.
Yeah.
If you were okay, I'm not dropping Temba.
But as I said, it's very important. I'm not interested in social media. If I'm the coach, social media does not come into my decision. My decision.
But why would you drop? Here's the question: why would you drop a player is opening for you at the World Cup, needs live reps in terms of because you can see it's all timing. He's missing his timing. Why would you drop him rather than keep him out there and see if he can't get the runs? Similar to what you did with Quinny.
Because I'm saying
Quinny got there quicker.
Because I'm saying it's between Quinny and Reza. Hypothetically, I probably picking Quinton, but if Reza goes absolutely berserk, I'm then going to have a headache, which is a good headache to have. It's a good headache to have, as I said.
If you pick Reza, who keeps you then?
Quinton. Reza and Quinton are opening.
Wait, no, I'm talking about if Reza wins the battle at the World Cup in Australia. Who keeps for you?
Well, then obviously, then it's simple. Klaasen keeps bats at 7. Done.
Who do you drop? So does Aiden bowl 4?
Aiden's probably going to bowl 4. Probably.
Okay.
Then it becomes...
You're very bold.
You have to. We didn't make bold decisions in the last World Cup, and look where it left us.
Yeah, left us out in the dark, and everyone thought we were the Cinderella story somehow by missing out on net run rate. Anyway, my thing is this: Temba needs the reps. He hasn't played at that competitive level since the last time we went in. There was about 6 months ago, right? So he needs the reps, and so he'll get his timing. His timing will come, and you need him to try and actually get a significant score, get his confidence back, because you don't want him starting the World Cup not having any runs under the belt. Look at how important that 100 that happened for Rassie, because before then everybody and their mother wanted Rassie out of the T20 team, and then he went and scored that 100, and everyone was like, okay, we can live with that. We need to get to that point where it's okay. We know what Timber does. We know his limitations. This is where we can live with, because he's been chosen as the captain by the said coach that we all respect and love and everything else. So he has to play in the third T20. I say drop Riley. He's had 2 chances. Riley will get his opportunities in the warm-up games, because you can play like a whole host of things. In the warm-up games, Aiden doesn't need to play. Riley can bat it full. Like, you can play around with everything else. It depends on whether this match matters. If this match doesn't matter, I take Aiden out. I drop Riley to 4. I play Rizzo at 3, because this game doesn't matter, right? This 30-20. If it matters, if you want to win, then you play Aiden. If you don't want to win, you put Aiden on the bench, right? Or David Miller, whoever you want, because they're on 4. They're hot, right? So then give other guys a chance. Make sure. Like Heino Clausen sitting there looking to see if he can't get a game, because you need him to be hot too when he comes in, right? You want your backups to be hot as well. So I think maybe because we've lost the series, give guys a chance, right? Those who are off form, stay. Who are off form coming into form, stay. So Quinnan and Timber stay. Riza comes in at 3. Hopefully it's not a 200 without. Okay, I'd love a 200 without loss, because then all our problems are solved. But it would probably create further problems down the order, because guys didn't get a chance to bat. But you need to give guys opportunities to bat. You're running out of games. You're running out of solutions. So it's not a 7-match T20 series like in Pakistan and England, where you can chop and change and do whatever you want. It's just 3. So Timber sits at the top. Quinny stays there. Riza comes in at 3. Maybe Riza opens. Timber goes to 3. I don't know. You guys will decide. You guys can haggle over that. Riley stays for me, because I need him hot as well, because it looks like he's starting at the World Cup based on how this has gone. And I think Boucher said he wanted to see combinations. So let's see Riley batting at 4 and see if it works. Keep Tristan in. Tristan needs the reps. Between David Miller and Aiden Markham, you must decide who stays. I say David. Aiden can take a rest. We've seen enough. We know. Just keep him hot, keep him cool. That's what it is. And then from a bowling perspective, Tim, where you're looking, I know they went with Keshav yesterday. Keshav bowled really well. Did you think we needed another spinner based on the way Aiden bowled? Because I looked at that and I was like, why is Shamsi not playing? I know he's off form, but similar to my argument, everybody who's off form needs to play. So, for instance, Kagiso, go and sit down.
Off, yeah.
Bring Lungi and I'm in. And yesterday kind of gave me, and I was like, okay, wait, is Dwayne even going to get a game? Because that's another guy I'd like to see. So maybe take Dwayne for now, put Dwayne in, and there's a squad of 15. Use the squad of 15, even though yes, we have captaincy issues. So that's where I was. I was like surprised. I was like, wait, Cash bowled well. Like, could Shamsi have been an option?
No, I wouldn't have played him in the last game. You needed somebody who was going to bowl wicket to wicket on that pitch. The spinners that were a little bit more X factor and had the potential to bowl the odd bad ball, because they're looking for the wicket taking delivery, was a risk. That was a pitch that would have been a huge gamble for me if Shamsi had played, which is why Markham was successful, because he just bowled wicket to wicket, straight up and down, didn't try anything, any funny deliveries or anything. That's why it sort of worked. Saying that, I would probably play him in the last game, Shamsi. I would probably, actually no, I wouldn't probably. I would definitely be dropping Anna. Anna would be dropped, and I would be playing Proteas and Parnell as the bowling combinations. And again, I would be saying to them, I'm only picking one of you. I'm only picking one of you in the 11. This is your chance. Go out there, and it's a dog eat dog world. This, and I'm not. Obviously, as I said last week, I said I like the theory of having both in the 11, but I don't want that to be in their minds. I want it to be what in their minds that
they must
it's
know that one
between.
is playing. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me that's the thing. What outside of that, what do you want to see from the Proteas in that third T20?
It's got to be better at the death. Those overs, we've got to be better. I mean, it's I know I'm a bit of a stuck record, and hopefully the humidity won't be quite as intense, and they won't be missing the Yorkers by some distance from toe to knee.
Yeah.
Look, that has to work. That has to come out, and Riley is similar with Quinton. You know what Quinton is capable of. We know what he's capable of. We saw what he produced. Riley has to show that. Yeah, there are caveats to both games, as you rightly point out. Particularly in the last game when we were going for such a large total. But you still have to produce it. You're back in the squad now. You have to produce the goods. You don't produce the goods, I'm looking elsewhere. So it's Riley and the death bowling. Death bowling is the priority for me. It's a real concern, even though it's our strength. I worry what our last 5 overs are going to do against Australia, against India, against Pakistan who are interested, against England. England look dangerous now with Harry Brook and Ben Duckett. They look a real force at the moment in terms of their batting. So that's a problem for me. I need that to be better.
Yeah, I think from my end, to add on to you, it's just Timber. I think Timber just needs to get runs. I don't know how they're going to come, but he needs to get some sort of like a 30 or something, just to, even if it's run a ball, it's fine. Like, guys will complain, but just to get that feel back, to be out there, to, it's just unfortunate that he's getting out for ducks. There's nothing he can do about that. Well, yes, he could have left the ball and you would have complained, but I don't know what he must do. Like you'll say score runs, but he's getting pearlers from Arshdeep. You say score runs. He tried to clear cover. He couldn't. He mistimed it. It's things like that. But look, guys, yeah, that's what I need from him. I need my captain to take us through, and I think he'll surprise a lot of few people in leading up and at the World Cup as well. Outside of that, that's enough of those men in India. We're done with those guys. Next thing is this weekend, CSA started the domestic. Well, didn't start the domestic season because some people say the women's has started. They started last week, and the women's top division actually played some games the week before. But from a men's side, the Division 2 T20 Cup actually happened this weekend. We caught a glimpse of the SA Under-19 side, and they are. Essentially, it's a Division 2, but we've only got 7 Division 2 sides, so SA Under-19 get invited every year, which is really good for their development, to give guys an opportunity to see how well they are, how well they're doing. And this is a SA Under-19 side that didn't have Devil Brevis. It had a couple of interesting players, and Tim will take us through. The interesting thing about that is that obviously it was a group knockout. They split the teams into 2 divisions. They played, I think it was in Tobecha, and the other one was in East London, and the other one was in Pietermaritzburg. And SA Under-19 playing against Easterns, playing against the KZN Tuskers, and also the Limpopo. I don't know what Limpopo's thing is.
Impala.
The Impalas, yes. They actually won all 3 of their games. Really, really awesome showing. They will be joined in the semi-final. Let me just put this up so everyone can see. This is how it actually ended up. In terms of, we don't have the scorecards, we just have a table because CSA doesn't know how to keep scorecards, and you can't find scorecards on this anyway. We could have put up stuff for you, but the games were live on YouTube. So the Tuskers go through with SA Under-19 out of Pool A, and Northern Cape Heat, who did really well last year in the T20 competition. They came through, but what happened in East London is that the first 2 games were rained out, and effectively the Sunday was a shootout, a straight shootout. Whoever won their game went through, and it was the Northern Cape Heat beating the Impala as well as the Eastern Cape Lenati beating the Badgers from the Southwestern District. That game went to a super over with Marco Moraes scoring 26 runs, or 23 of the 26 runs that they scored, which was really insane. And so those two teams go through. It wasn't Impala that SN19 beat, it was the Rhinos from Mpumalanga. And Tim, you watched most of these games, or pretty much all of them, and you followed them all. I watched a few SN19 games this weekend. Who impressed you from SN19 this weekend? Because that's the storyline coming out of this weekend, right?
Yeah. I will, if you allow me to go to my second storyline, but I will definitely focus on the SN19. They were honestly the find. They were. Well, we've just talked about slow setting up a score in T20 cricket for the Proteas. SN19 did the complete opposite. They went in from every single game and they said target was 200. You could see by the way that they were playing, they played proper T20 attacking forthright cricket. Their batting was exceptional. It didn't matter who bowled against them. They took the attack. They took the attack to, okay, it's Division 2 cricket, but guys who are far more experienced than they are at professional cricket. Guys that have been around for a long time. You know, you had Matthew Arnold's of this world has been around for a long time, getting absolutely pasted. The find for me has to be a local Cape boy, one of the Bosch boys, Mikael Prince. I'm hoping I got that pronunciation right.
Okay, yes.
Left hand bat, tall, really imposing guy, and you could tell the difference between him and maybe some of the sort of middle order guys that came in later on. You could tell that this boy was here to play. This boy was here to show his skills, and boy did he did it. I think that the least he scored was 35, which was in his first game. His high score was 64. In his 3 innings, he made about 150 runs, averaging over 50. Strike rate between 120 and 150 in each innings. So, you know, he never allowed any of the bowlers time down. Then, of course, the guys up north will know Matthew Boast. Matthew Boast,
Yes.
he is a serious talent, that boy. He's so talented that I'm actually not sure whether he's a batting all-rounder or bowling all-rounder. I'm not sure. He smoked the ball. He probably hit the ball further than anyone in the competition this weekend. Again, and he's a big, strapping fast bowler. You can see that he's got a couple of yards in him still. I reckon as he develops and builds and it gets stronger. Huge talent. Left arm spinner from Liam Elder. Again, very accurate, very difficult to get away. Hugely impressed with him. So yeah, that's pretty much the SN19. I could go through the entire 11, but those 3 guys were fantastic for me. Then Mpumalanga for me were Mpumalanga have lost a couple of guys this season. They were always going to lose a couple of guys to Boland, but they've really found a way to play. They got their captain Yasser Cook is still there, and against the team, again much more experienced than they are, Easterns.
Yes.
Mpumalanga caps come to about
They
108.
chased 173.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mpumalanga caps come to about 108 T20 cricket. The Easterns come to over 200. So again, it's the experience that you would think would keep them over the line. But again, Easterns made 173 and needing 8 of the final over with 3 wickets in hand, Mpumalanga did it. They got over the line. They beat Easterns. They'll be disappointed with their performance yesterday against the SN19s. But overall, I think they can be pretty proud of their performance. That they really gave a good account of themselves, particularly in that game against Easterns. As you said, there wasn't a lot of cricket from East London, unfortunately. Didn't see an awful lot of that. We just had those games yesterday. But my entire focus was on Pool A, largely down to the weather. My one concern would be for Northern Cape. They are most likely to be promoted when that comes around. As things stand, they look a little short to me. It's early doors, it's early season, but they look as if they're missing something.
But against their other compatriots, the other teams in and around them in Division 2, outside of the Tuskers taking a leap, and last year the Tuskers were a little short, is there anybody else that can compete with Northern Cape? Because Northern Cape looks streaks ahead of the rest.
Yeah, look, Northern Cape will probably be promoted. It would take something drastic to happen for them not to. But I wouldn't put it past the Tuskers. Tuskers started slowly. Their first game wasn't particularly good. But they with Grant Morgan there now at the helm as head coach, I think he made sure that their last two games they were much tighter, much more like themselves. So yes, look, you're right. Northern Cape probably be promoted, but if I'm Mark Charlton, I'd be a little bit concerned. The missing of Evan Jones, it does
and
look
Jonathan
as if it's looking well. Yeah. I'm not sure I should comment on the Jonathan Van Dier situation.
Okay.
I best leave it there.
Okay, let's not go there. But he's the other person missing out of that side. But Evan Jones was really important to them, and obviously he's now with the Lions. And you kind of feel like obviously we knew how important he was to them in their T20 challenge in last season across all formats. I'm not sure if they try to replace him, but it is one game, Tim. And my thing is that you kind of need to allow the season to unfold for us to actually see. Because that's the thing about what happened last year was the T20 competition wasn't necessarily a reflection of how teams would do in the different formats because of the nature of the game of T20. Because on one day you can arrive and everybody's not at the races and you find yourself in trouble. But look, the disappointing thing for me was the fact that obviously the rain in East London, it didn't give us all an opportunity to be able to see. Because I like the Guwahati. I've always liked them. I kind of felt that they could punch above their weight if they want to. Obviously, we know the Badgers, the Southwestern Districts, they're really good. We know what the Tuskers can bring, but you kind of felt like the Guwahati as a T20 side could be could be an interesting prospect, and they never got to play each other. And that was the game I was looking forward to in this weekend. So for me, that was it. But this weekend, we have semi-finals. The winner of Pool A, South Africa under-19, a massive improvement from last year. They will be playing the Eastern Cape Guwahati, and then the Tuskers will be playing the Northern Cape Heat. I like that Tuskers Northern Cape Heat semi-final. I just hope SA under-19 don't get too overexcited and think that this is an easy game. Because at this level, it's still a bit of a stretch for a lot of them. They are well prepared, and Shukri Conrad should be given a lot of praise for that. But what we saw even last year with SA under-19 was that they kind of, in some of the finer parts of the game at this level, they struggled. Whereas here, I really do hope that they actually do give the Guwahati a run for their money. And the Guwahati themselves don't want to be losing to school kids. So, I know 3 teams lost to school kids, but, it's something, guys. Like, it should be more of a SA under-19 losing really respectively, unless we have a group of SA under-19 that could be really good and that could be world beaters and essentially win that World Cup.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's the thing I like about this is it's now visible. We've always been able to say, but we don't know about that guy because we haven't seen him. Well, you have now. There's no excuse. There is literally no excuse. You've seen him. He's on the live stream. He's on the TV. It's there. It's there to be seen.
Yeah, we just need more coverage. We need more non-TV coverage in terms of this tournament. Like CSA's website is silent on that. It actually needs to be updated. The app also just went through a situation where we couldn't actually go back and look. Like we watched on YouTube, but we couldn't go back and actually look at the scorecard. And as we went back to the YouTube film, went to the end of the match
From
and then see
the beginning of the blooming match. Yeah.
Yes. So it was a hassle. And CSA needs to get their house in order because you can't want to promote the game, but you're leaving these as this is the most important part of the game. The Proteas are not the most important part of the game. This level is the most important part of the game. So hopefully this weekend, a little bit more access, a little bit more information coming out, but it's still exciting. It's still really good to see those players in Division 2. Look, if you have a great season, you get yourself promoted. It's as simple as that.
Well, talking about that, I was just gonna finish off on that note. The importance of this. So the last game, the Easterns had to beat the Tuskers and they had to win convincingly. They won, but they didn't win convincingly enough to get the bonus point to go through to the semi-final. But a certain Mark Pierce made 51 of 39. This was his first game of the weekend. He's not a contracted player with the Easterns at the moment. He played Colts last year, and the commentators kept saying, "Where's this guy been?" Well, they now know where he's been. They've seen him. So, the point I'm making here is how important that is. That's one innings that he's had, and he's taken his chance. To a large extent, we don't know what happens in Colts cricket. But last year, David, Johnny Bird, and David Smith were all playing Colts cricket, and they're all now contracted province players. So there is a light at the tunnel if you're playing there. There is a goal for the players.
Yes, 100% Tim. Look, I liked him actually. I was like, okay. But that's what this tournament's about, is to find players and to give them the spotlight to get that elevation. And even maybe in SA20, I was looking at Matthew Bose going, some teams will be looking to say, we might be short of an all-rounder for that wildcard spot. Outside of that, Tim, thank you very much. We'll be back later this week to review the T20 series and look forward into the World Cup or the ODIs, and then go to the World Cup. We could have just played just 6 T20s and made them count for the World Cup. But we still have to play those 3 ODIs. Those are important ODIs to get South Africa to the World Cup. An important marker in Mark Boucher's tenure as coach, because I think if South Africa lose 3-0 here, I think we're headed for the qualifiers. But outside of that, Tim, thank you very much for joining. And to everybody, remember to follow us on the different social media platforms. And also, we have an audio version on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, as well as Anchor Podcasts. Outside of that, Tim, it's goodbye and lesale.